Chapter 2. As I've been working my way through this list of attributes, I find it interesting that people have chosen this amalgamation of ideas to ascribe to their God. It almost makes sense, if you don't think about it too much, that God ought to have these features. This is a list of features that some people would like their God to have, though. It is a wish list, just as children around Christmas time might write up a list of things they are desiring. This list of attributes can only be called discovered if you first rely on some so-called infallible truth source and then derive the impressive list that I started with. Nothing on the list is something you can find out for yourself. The list can be added to and modified, but nonetheless, it will always be people telling other people about what they have come up with. We should reject this kind of knowledge. It is nonsense, and if some God actually exists and chose to use this method of describing himself to us, then you should add omni-ineptitude to the list. And don't worry about it conflicting with the other ideas, because none of the other incompatible ideas have ever bothered anyone before. How are we capable of determining if a particular thing or a particular being is infinite? How are we capable of determining if anything is spaceless? What does it mean to say God is infinite? I read the following as part of a response to this question at gotquestions.org. The infinite nature of God simply means that God exists outside of and is not limited by time or space. Infinite simply means without limits. When we refer to God as infinite, we generally refer to him with terms like omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence. Because God is infinite, he is also said to be transcendent, which simply means that God is exceedingly far above creation and is both greater than creation and independent of it. What this means is that God is so infinitely above and beyond us and our ability to comprehend that, had he not revealed himself, we would not know or understand what he is like. But thankfully, God has not left us ignorant about himself. Instead, he has revealed himself to us through both general revelation, creation and conscience, and special revelation, the written Word of God, the Bible, and the living Word of God, Jesus Christ. Therefore, we can know God, and we can know how to be reconciled to him and how to live according to his will. Despite the fact that we are finite and God is infinite, we can know and understand God as he has revealed himself to us. So, it turns out that infinite is a vague and useless term to use on this list. And yet, I'm sure it will continue to be a favorite for a long time, exactly because of this. This is the kind of wishy-washy, deepity void of a response that gets on my nerves, though. Let's look at this response a little, though. The infinite nature of God simply means that God exists outside of and is not limited by time or space. Although we don't have any evidence that anything does exist outside of time and space, let's just say that part is true. Then where is God? Does God have some kind of God space? Where is and what is heaven supposed to be? Does God reside there, or is it just another manifestation of some kind, in the way God manifested himself to Moses? How can someone picture the greater picture? Does God surround the universe, or is he passing through it somehow? I have wondered what lies beyond our cosmic horizon, and there are some theories, but we just don't know. This is the difference with thinking skeptically on this. A theist might say they don't understand it all, but that this is just the way it is. I, however, have no reason to accept it as being any aspect of reality, and I would need a much more sufficient reason to be convinced than the reasons currently offered. On what grounds do those who accept these things stand? Now, if God really is also spaceless, then how is he able to interact with space in any way? According to the Bible, God did at a certain time occupy space, unless that wasn't really him, and he was just using his supernatural power to manipulate time, space, and matter in a way to fool us into thinking it was actually him. Was that really God's backside that he revealed to Moses, causing Moses to be radiant and white? Or was it just a neat trick? Was that really Jesus in the body? Or was Jesus just a manipulation of atoms? And where is Jesus and his body today? I'd assume he isn't in the physical universe currently, but is he still in physical form right now? In a spaceless realm? It's not that I am saying that these things are not somehow possible, but to be clear, I don't think they are. More so, why should I accept that this really is the way things are? Why should a God expect me to believe these things that are, to my mind, nonsense? To quickly diverge from the topic here, but also to continue these questions, why should a God plan to punish me for eternity for not being convinced of any of this? And if there is no hell, why should a God cause me to be annihilated for not being convinced of these things? And if everyone does go to heaven anyway, why should a God create all this religious confusion, conflict, and agony amongst the people he supposedly loves? If a single, very powerful God really does exist, it must be a Loki type of character. I'm not saying that I think this is true, but only that on the proposition of a God or gods existing, the Loki scenario seems to be more likely. Now, for a moment of wisdom from our friend Thomas Aquinas.
Clearly, the person who accepts the church as an infallible guide will believe whatever the church teaches.